episode of the SFL podcast. Y'all know who I be, Mighty RX, Max Paul, owner of the Storm, your host extraordinaire. Tonight we are joined by none other than the co-owner of the St. Louis Gladiator, Mr. Dwayne Schindler, who also happens to be the free safety, the deep man on the back end of their defense, Freeman Peltier. Mr. Dwayne Schindler. Dwayne, how you doing tonight?
Yeah, great introduction. I'm doing fine. Just getting ready for the holiday break and some SFL action coming up here.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. We're gonna keep this show a little lighter and quicker than usual. All we're gonna do really is gonna touch upon the preseason matchup that was set forth this week in SFL alerts. A little earlier this week, 9 matchups were set up. So we're gonna touch upon the matchups. We understand there's no game planning per se in these matchups. It's basically just team build against team build to give everybody a chance or opportunity to see their player in action. So with that being said, let me post this up. So I put together a little something something so y'all could kind of see who we're talking about. We're gonna go here, gonna do that. We're gonna share. We're gonna share to everyone so everybody can see what I'm talking about. In the meantime, we thank all of y'all that are taking time out to join us tonight. This is greatly appreciated. But without further ado, we're going to touch on the first matchup. Uh, Dwayne, you got the file I sent you, so you'll be able to follow along as well. In the first matchup, we're going to look at. Oh, wait, what did I do? What did I do? There we go. The first matchup, we're going to look at the new look Dallas Roughnecks traveling to OKC to face old faces, new places with Deacon Nickens at quarterback and the OKC Renegades. So Dwayne, what do you think about the moves between the two teams and what we might see in this preseason matchup?
Well, I think we have two very solid defenses here. Uh, then you have the 50 Shades of Gray defense over in Dallas. OKC with very much a heavy kind of build for the most part, but um, they're kind of switching it up a little bit this year. Um, the way they're going, what we got a defensive end, an inside linebacker, and then a full secondary out there. Deacon Nickens, I'm interested to see what happens there because we had Johnny Redfeather there for quite a number of seasons. See if their offense, has a bit of a new look. No Pete Bruschi, but we still have Tiberius Bullvine there and the two tight end look. Whereas you have Mac Wavy coming over uh, again for Dallas, and we all saw what he could do with the passing game, and he's got a lot of weapons out there. Um, it should be a very close matchup. OKC, I think, has a little bit of an advantage with the home field advantage, but I'm looking for it to be a fairly high scoring game despite the defenses. And then coming down to the wire.
Um, I like the direction Dallas is going to kind of have a more balanced offense. If you remember last season, they didn't boast a running star running back. So to bring back Mike Davis, who was the rookie of the year a couple of seasons back, is a good deal. Bringing back John Woo, Mac Wavy Jr. To as not only the quarterback but also as the offensive coordinator is a good deal. As we know, last season Cleveland led the league in scoring, so hopefully he could reprise some of that success he had there. The only issue I have with Dallas's team, somewhat at least now for the beginning, is their lack of star boundary defensive help, as they have no cornerbacks on their roster, at least no star corners, and they've also brought in John Woo at the lowest level for a quarterback. So we don't know how he will operate when there's heat by his feet, so to speak. When the pocket starts to collapse or there's pressure in his lap. Um, and conversely, we're looking at the Oklahoma City Renegades. They invested a ton of their cap on the defensive side of the ball. We don't know how well that will turn out for them. Um, Stalwarts, Tiberius Bovine has been kind of re-signed at the lowest possible value. Gone are the days of Pete Bruschi back there towing the rock and just being the reliable 100-yard back, feature back in OKC. Now it's Donk Bunker's turn to kind of do things over there. Um, it'll be we'll have to see how they go about deploying, their full offense. They got two receivers, two tight ends, and a star back to kind of, help their quarterback along so that way there's always a star skill position player at the quarterback's um, availability, for him to be able to rely upon when push comes to shove. In this preseason matchup where neither team gets to game plan or gets to use actually playbooks tailored to their style of play, um, gonna be interesting. It's preseason, so it's not really a matter of who wins or loses, really. But at least you get a glimpse as to how each player um, will be able to how successful they'll be able in their with their new abilities or lack thereof. So that's where I see there. So if you put a like if I was forced to pick who would win this game, I like Dallas to be able to go into OKC and pull this preseason game out. But um, yeah, that's where I'd go there. In the next matchup, we have the Queen City Corsairs with the most valuable backfield in the league between AJ Castle and Ash Odom. They're traveling to San Antonio to face the Vaqueros. Or the Vaqueros. If you can't roll your R. Dwayne, tell me a little bit about Queen City since you got a little history back there and how you think they're gonna fare against the San Antonio Vaqueros.
Well, Eric, I kind of consider a mentor. He's the Bill Belichick. A lot of people call him of the SFL. He uh, he is by far and away the most successful owner coach in the league, and he tends to win championships in even years, or even seasons rather. Hint, hint, hint. So I think too what we're seeing with both these teams is they're going pretty much to the strengths of what their builds were last season. Eric's found, I think, a groove with the build he has. This is a very similar build to what he had before, and the investments pretty much similar for what he's doing in value. He's putting the most value in the quarterback and the running back. Uh, quite a few um, quite a few good players there spreading the wealth on defense. He's got the two free safety look and the no corners look. He seems really familiar with that. He's investing more in the defensive line as of late, the last few seasons. Over on the other side of the ball in San Antonio, it's very close to what they had last season with the addition of the kickers matter. The punter also matters apparently, and saving cap. I'm a little bit interested to see how this strategy works because we got a lot of teams with kickers and punters this season. And I think some salary cap considerations came in to play here, but you also only still have 12 star players. So I think the Vaqueros, excuse me, I think they got into a little bit of a groove at the end of the season last season. And we all know that Corky puts together some great defenses. I think if they can get a little bit more consistency on offense, they'll be fine. Uh, you head in here with more traditional builds into this game, and you have a more conservative AI play calling and playbooks in these exhibition games with the default playbooks. So I think we're going to have a very interesting matchup here. and being in San Antonio, maybe that gives them an opportunity. But I would have to go with Queen City. I really think Queen City, they're going to be a strong player this season, even though they've got a very tough conference.
I like your breakdown there. Before we continue, we want to introduce our other host tonight. It's none other than Ramos, owner of the owner of the Mexico City Aztecs, and currently owner of the crown, of the trophy, of all the gold. Ramos, how you doing tonight?
Hola everyone, I'm doing pretty good.
Ra-
Excited to
Ra-
get the
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
Did you get the file I sent you? I mean
Yeah,
that I posted in the
I did.
podcast. Okay, so right now
Yeah,
we're
I
going
did.
over Queen City and San Antonio. Um, I color coded everything to make things easier. Tell me a little bit of what you think of what we might see in this preseason game coming up.
Even though it's not gonna be the original like playbooks that these teams will bring to the table this regular season, I think that we will get um really an idea on how this Queen City Corsair team and the Vaqueros team is gonna play, especially Queen City with the goal quarterback and the goal running back, or almost goal tier of players. So I'm excited to watch this game because we play Queen City week 1. If I have to predict a winner, even though it really does not matter much because it's preseason, I will go with Queen City, just because I just like to build a little bit more with the goal quarterback and goal running back. So I'm excited to watch this game. I cannot wait. And yeah, I think that Queen City will win, but maybe 6 points.
um, as I was explaining, Queen City comes in to the season with the most valuable backfield. Like between the quarterback and running back, no other team boasts of a duo as this. So off the gate, they're going to be a problem on the ground and in the air, which will afford their defense some time to kind of play bend but don't break. Without those, this is another team that lacks star perimeter um, help, as they don't have any star corners on their roster. They're a team that will, probably will try to eat up clock, score points, and try to rush your opposing team's clock and try to force them and to play faster that they want to by trying to score quickly to keep up with what Queen City could do. That's where, Koa Kaleo and Ellis Harlow, Alex Cross last season, who led linebackers in sacks, they're going to be problematic. So I see the strategy, Kyle. Eric, I mean, I see the strategy, Eric. I see what you're doing over there in Queen City. San Antonio last season, the last 2 games, they looked like gangbusters. The other 10, they were in games, they just couldn't finish out. Hopefully for the Vaqueros, they learned something from what their recipe of success was late in the season, bottled it up, and were able to build upon and put together a roster that could help continue their winning ways. So, saying all that, they brought back Joey Langdon at the highest possible value. Jared Olson is borderline highest possible value as well as a free safety. So those are going to be kind of like the two stalwarts on each side of the ball, which will hopefully will help Langdon in his decision making. Last season, I believe he set a record for most interceptions in a game. Um, if the Vaqueros, if there's a repeat of that this season, the Vaqueros won't compete much for anything. So, in this matchup for this preseason, just the way Queen City's built, I like Queen City. Same way as you do, Ramos. Just they're like if I had to build a team differently than the way then we went to go about building Storm for this season, that's how I would have went. So I really like the way Queen City's built, and I like Queen City for the preseason matchup. Moving on to the next one, we got my boy Chizzy, Mark Chisholm, owner of the Atlanta Swarm. They're traveling west, way west, to some new digs, the digs of the San Francisco Sharks. Um, owned by brand new owner Ryan Moats. Ramos, you're looking at how the Sharks are looking with all these upper echelon players, or what you think of this matchup?
Yeah, I'm looking at all the goal players right there, or almost goal, 7 players total. I think this is gonna be a low scoring affair, probably in the mid tens, like 16 to 13, 14 to 10, something like that. I think Atlanta will win this game because I just like, again, it goes to the build. I just like the build a little bit more. It just feels a little bit more complete in my personal opinion. So I will go with Atlanta probably in the last second field goal or something like 16 to 13.
I'm sensing a recurring theme. Dwayne, what do you think of this matchup between the Swarm and the Sharks?
Well, this is, I think, where you're going to see the differences between the way the AI calls the default playbooks um, versus how an actual playbook built around a specific build will go. You've got a very unique build in San Francisco, and then they're going up against a team with a very traditional build, and also a team that I really like the way Chisholm spread his money around, or spread the value around on his team. This is a very solid team this season, and I mean they're looking to basically make this their season, make more noise, and they're going to be firing out of the gate. Now with San Francisco expansion team, yeah, I like all the goals that they have over there. I think they have a very solid defensive build. Um, I think what is going to trouble them in the exhibition game is the non-traditional build, but it's not really going to give us much of an idea of what everybody's looking at when it comes to the Sharks, which is how they're going to try to utilize the fullback, the star fullback with the 2 abilities and maxed out there. And they have some weapons definitely in the passing game as well, but I think what you're going to see is that there's a very different way you have to utilize that kind of build. Um, a fullback is not a running back, and he doesn't get involved by the AI as well unless you tweak it correctly. I've used fullbacks in the past, both generics and both star fullbacks. And so I don't think we've ever seen a max fullback at all. That could be a lot more deadly. The tight end being max, that's something that I think could be a hidden X factor weapon for them as well. But you tend to have a more conservative playbook. So I don't know that the AI will be calling this the way San Francisco would like it in this game. I like Atlanta, and I think there's a possibility it could be a low scoring game, but I think Atlanta being a little bit more set with a more balanced approach is going to get on a roll early and then take it home.
Just to answer your question, and just to put it as an input, as a fact, SFL fact, I'm pretty sure the highest tier fullback in SFL history was Tiberius Bovine before he turned into a tight end. For one season, he was a fullback, probably season 3 or 4, and he was okay. He caught some passes, but then Michael said, you know what, if he's gonna catch passes, let me go ahead and move into tight end. So I'm pretty sure he's the highest tier fullback in SFL history. Just as a, so let's see how Ryan Moats the second place.
Thanks for a history lesson there, Ramos.
Now, because of the way San Francisco's built. They're built a little differently than um, tradition says. And that will play a factor in preseason because in preseason, the playbooks, the running plays, the screen passes, everything is tailored to the tailback, who in this case is going to be a non-star. So be, because of because of that, and because of Atlanta's more traditional build, more balanced build, I believe it's going to be a defensive ball game where you know Atlanta is going to have trouble moving the ball because of the way San Fran's defense is just loaded, and San Fran's going to have trouble moving the ball in Atlanta because of the way their offense is put together. So it's going to be a low-scoring defensive ball game. I cannot judge San Fran yet because I don't know how they're going to go about deploying these weapons in the regular season. I know Mark Chisholm and the Swarm, what they're about. They're about big plays. They're about that chunk plays eating up big amounts of yardage. So they might go a game or a drive or two drives or three drives where nothing's happening, and then the minute the defense falls asleep, it's boom, 80-yard touchdown, Boo Chisholm, or 65-yard run. Yeah, y'all have heard me say this before. So I have no doubt that Atlanta will be competitive this season. Offensively, they're gonna find a way to score points. Defensively, we know Atlanta's defense is always a problem. Um, so for this matchup coming into this preseason, I like Atlanta by a hair because of their more traditional build and because of the way the game caters to more traditional build that's more as opposed to the more daring no star backs, no star corners, no star quarterbacks kind of build. Next matchup we're going to touch upon is the Houston Hyenas. They're facing Tulsa, but not in Tulsa. I believe they're facing Tulsa in the old DC Dragon Stadium. Dwayne, what do you think of the matchup and the locale that they've selected?
Well, hopefully we've got some DC Dragons references going on here, maybe uniforms or Richard Snowden memorials. I think it's going to be rocking there in DC. They were a good franchise for the SFL, one of our champions. Uh, I think we're seeing, as far as these two teams go, you're seeing uh, they're going again with what they know, and very even builds. You've got the quarterback, running back, three wide receivers for Houston. You've got defensive line and outside linebackers and the full secondary in the defense. And other than having the tight end over there for one of the wide receivers, it's pretty much the same setup you've got over there in Tulsa. And then you have, the defensive tackle and the inside linebacker, and they have a kicker, which, could factor into the game, and the full secondary. Uh, I think what we're going to probably see is, that short passing game and working the run from Houston, and very kind of similar type of strategy, maybe liking to run the ball a little bit more with Tulsa. So, defenses are definitely going to factor in. I think this should be a lower scoring game and physical game with big plays, and this is going to be an interesting game. Um, I say edge to Houston just because we haven't quite seen Tulsa yet. But you never know; it could be an upset. So yeah, I said and Tulsa, they'll prove what they're worth, in the early part of the season. And this is one thing I want to see as far as the build goes, because we're going to end up playing them down the line in the Central.
Very good. Ramos, what you think?
I will just echo of what Dwayne just said. I think this is just two very, similar builds. You have five offensive pieces, then you have the rest on the defense. But here's the thing: Tulsa does have the kicker, and on those even matchups, preseason games, I think that the kicker can make a big difference. I will not be surprised if this game goes to overtime. I think that this game could go to overtime. If such, I will give the little advantage to Tulsa. I'm not sure if you will call it an upset, but I will give the little, just minimal advantage to Tulsa because they do have the kicker, and they probably can score those tough points. And also, keep the Houston Hyenas on bad field position, if you will, on kickoff. So probably Tulsa by a score of about 17 to 14.
These two teams, at least offensively to me, have very similar builds. They have a middle tier quarterback. They both have middle tier running backs. They both have three receiving skill options for the quarterback to pick from whenever they go about throwing the ball. Um, Houston's a little more diverse, seeing that they boast three-star receivers as opposed to Tulsa's two receivers, one tight end. So Houston could be getting to more diverse sets. Won't hurt them as much. Tulsa's kind of having to. So at least for preseason purposes, um, you know, and on that aspect, it'll work. Defensively, Houston with the two outside linebackers is going to be interesting because we know out of the box, the game plays 4-2-5 nickel, where only one of the outside linebackers is going to be on the field. Um, so it's going. I'm almost. I agree with you. It's going to be a really close ball game. Um, the kicker is going to play. He's going to play a factor in one, just the kicking game. He'll be a factor as well on kickoffs, as he'll be able to get extra depth on his kicks, forcing Houston to have to go the extra, 5 to 10 extra yards per drive, to get down the field. And the fact that they're playing in, the SFL president's old digs. It's going to be a lot of nostalgia. It's going to happen that night, which is always good. We get to revisit some SFL history there. Um, for the case of this game, I'll stick with the upstart, with the newcomer. Especially since they're the home team. And I agree with you. It's going to be a close affair, 17-14 deal. Maybe we'll get an odd score, 16-13. Maybe it's a field goal fest kind of deal. So I could go with you there. The next matchup, we got Prater Boy Frank's Tallahassee Pride going to another new dig. They're headed to Indianapolis to take on the Red Devils. Ramos, what you think of this one here?
I love this game because I think that this is going to be a matchup where we will really see if this front four of the Tallahassee Pride actually will work this season. Even though it's not like as I said, like real playbooks, I think that we will get a very good glance, a very good idea on how this Tallahassee Pride front four will play. I think that this game though will be won or lost by Christian, because I think that this is going to be, he's going to be obviously the leader of this ball club. And, if he can get the ball to Ken Gossett and Duke Wilson and his boys, I think that the Tallahassee Pride will win. If I have to do a prediction, it's all the games are very close. I might go with probably the Pride by a score of about 20 to 14. Um, but I think that this Tallahassee Pride defense will have their hands full with a couple of good wide receivers. They have the tight end right there, so it's gonna be up to the defensive front to kind of put pressure on the quarterback and shut down those running lanes. Though, as I said, I think Christensen will be the deciding factor on this ball game. So I'll go Tallahassee with the W.
Dwayne, what say you?
Well, I think this could be a closer game, than it may look on paper. Um, we have, over in Indianapolis, they have a very traditional build for the most part. They have a punter, then they have the defensive backs with two free safeties. and two cornerbacks and a strong safety, and then the outside linebacker, but no defensive line, and then two wide receivers, quarterback, running back, tight end. A little bit more traditional than what Frank's thrown out there this season. He has the star cornerback with the hot hand star wide receiver. That's always a good matchup. But he's going with a full house backfield with the running back and fullback in there, and we actually have a higher rated fullback than running back. That's going to be interesting to see how they can utilize that and how they plan to utilize that when they only have two passing threats on the outside with the two wide receivers and no tight end, no third wide receiver. So then you've got also, I really think it's very interesting. He has a four-man line, full four-man line out there, and no second cornerback on the secondary, and no linebackers. That's vulnerable in some ways, but it could be very good against certain strategies, especially the run. I think we're probably going to see, with the way both of these teams are set up, a lot of nickel and dime formations. That's going to hurt the passing, and they could go to the running game. It's going to be a close one. I see this as being like one or two big plays. Turn it. I would say that we're probably going to have the advantage be Tallahassee, but Indianapolis playing at home for their first game like that, it could be a lot closer than people think, and they could pull off the win as well here. Both of these teams, I mean, this is a big game for them to get ready for the season. This will show their conferences, which are both going to be tough conferences for these two teams to compete in, and it's going to show their conferences what they're made of.
Very good. For this matchup here, it's going to be interesting to watch that four-man D line against a more traditional offense. Quarterback, running back, two receivers, tight ends. Can Mike Johnson and Hunter Norwood, those big boys in the middle, can they slow down Matt Mitchell enough to force Indianapolis into second and third alongs, where the rest of that D line, Kevin Bain, Taquan Hale, could join in and put some heat under Nathan Lee's feet, to kind of force him into errant throws where those secondary members come make a play. If they're not able to slow down the running game of Indianapolis, it's going to be a long day, at least for the defense, because they won't be able to get off the field. They'll be facing a lot of second and third and shorts, and at that point, they have the offense's mercy. Now, conversely, we got Christensen back there toting the rock, spreading the love. Yeah, he only got two receivers, but if you look at the receivers, you got one that's a borderline upper echelon, and you got one that's middle tier. And then with Frank's history with the playbook and what is available to use with both a tailback and a fullback, I have no doubt, at least not for this game, but for the regular season purposes, that fullback will be an X factor in many games in ways that people did not expect. And so I'm not worried about the Tallahassee's offense one bit, having only two receivers. If we remember well, a couple of seasons back, Sioux Falls only had three offensive weapons total. They had a quarterback and two receivers, and I think they went 9-3. There was something ridiculous. The lack of offensive weapons, if you know how to, if you put them in the right spots, and then cater your playbook to take advantage of their strengths, it could be very, very successful. So no worries there. But for the intents and purposes of this game, because of the lack of second level defenders and the fact that non-star, a corner that Tallahassee has, will have to face a middle tier receiver of Indianapolis. I like Indianapolis to be able to pull it out late, tune 27-24 kind of deal. Look who's coming up. Dwayne, this team looks familiar to you, doesn't it? We got the St. Louis Gladiators. They're headed overseas for some fish and chips. To go face the um wow, really? I'm drawing a blank. They're going to London. What's London's team name? My gosh, I'm drawing a ridiculous blank.
Yeah, the
The
London Knights.
Knights.
The London Knights. I'm sorry. I'm Sliam. I'm sorry. Slim Shady. I'm sorry. I forgot. I really forgot the name. They're headed to London to face the Knights. This will be the Knights' first home game in their brand new stadium as a brand new team. Um, Dwayne, we'll keep you for last because you got some vested interest in this one. Ramos, what do you think of this game?
Well, this is one of the probably is the game that intrigues me the most of them all because of the history of coaches going elsewhere. But I really love this kind of matchup because again we get teams that are evenly built. You get both teams have two defensive linemen. Both teams have the quarterback, running back, and two wide receivers. One has a tight end, the other one doesn't. But other than that, everything seems to be pretty similar. Um, the Knights do not have another corner; they just have one. But I think that will not be a big difference in this ball game. And ultimately, I will give the very, very slight edge to the London Knights. And the only reason why is, well, one of the reasons why is because Liam Crowder knows the Gladiators pretty well. And the other thing is because the kicker, one more time. I think that the kicker in this preseason games will be a big difference. So I will go with London about 16 to 13, 19 to 16 approximately. Also, we have to keep a look on Slim Shady because he's the only goal player or borderline goal tier kind of player in this ball game. So look out for the linebacker of the London Knights, Slim Shady. He might have a good ball game, and he will be responsible on tackling Denzel Diaz. So I'll give the very very slight edge to the Knights.
I like I like this game. This game's gonna be interesting. Gonna be very balanced. Um, I like the boost up to Ethan Alexander from the uh, bronze level he was last year. Now he's now part of the middle tier gang. Denzel Diaz is part of the middle tier gang. Elijah Swaim is coming back for his sophomore season as part of the middle tier gang, which he was last season. He was a problem and a half as the only threat. Now he has some friends to take some attention away from him. How much more? Uh, how much more dominating is he going to be? Conversely, on the defensive side, at least for both teams, we're seeing a lot of big uglies. I love the big uglies. I'm not a big ugly. That's why I love the big uglies. They kind of, I always roll with big uglies wherever I went. Just saying, it's a term, not a qualification, folks. Nobody get alarmed. Um, Slim Shady in the middle of that defense, it's going to be problematic. Because we've seen Liam be a coordinator in St. Louis the last couple of seasons, and the type of defenses he puts forth once he finally gets to put his imprint is very good. Um, the fact they only have one star corner, mm, it remains to be seen how if they understand what works and what doesn't work as far as coverages. Uh, as Ramos touched upon that Zach Dags, the kicker of the Dags family fame. Um, we got like a gazillion Dags in the league. St. Louis looks very balanced. They gave it their quarterback some help this season, some toys, quote unquote, so he could spread the wealth down the field to some more reliable, uh, reliable receivers, and defensively. Though they are all lower level defenders, their ensemble is greater than each individual part. So I have a feeling they'll be able to at least keep teams at bay, bend but don't break style. For this game, it's gonna be in the because of the stock playbooks. It's gonna be another close ball game, very too close to decide. But I'll go with the home team, and the Knights are bringing home their first W, though unofficial, for the home crowd. Dwayne, what do you think of the matchup with your former coordinator?
Well, I'm just thinking that I hope that Liam doesn't make any kind of subtle goofs on the Alaska Storm page when he hears you forget his team's last name when he listens back to this. But um, yeah, well, we're very excited, me and Colin, to be going to London for their inaugural game. And we were honored to get the invite. We've got a little side bet going with Liam that if the Knights lose, he has to eat barbecued ribs for a week. If we lose, we have to eat fish and chips. I don't think that's really a punishment for either one of us, but yeah. So we're. Uh, I'll tell you, we're we couldn't be happier to have Liam in the league overall. But as to be facing him as an owner, and to also be facing James as well this season. Very they grew leaps and bounds last season with us, and Liam has just been phenomenal at producing the entire time I've known the guy, and he's such a quick learner and a quick study, and he's got a uh, game plan together and a build together that I think is a very solid build uh, going into what's going to be a very difficult conference, but I think he's going to turn some heads. I think he's definitely can compete with people over there. Whereas this season, we brought in uh, Aaron Arrington, because we lost half of our coaching staff, but I think we're gaining really good. A real good coordinator who is going to give us that extra spark. Could possibly be the next owner to watch out for in the SFL. And everybody's talked about our builds. I think really uh, any build will work. You just have to really understand your build when you make up the playbook. And that's we actually beat Houston pretty badly in the preseason game, and it made everything look like we had everything figured out, and it was a little bit rougher road to haul when we got into the regular season last season. But we were able to turn it around, and I think that we have learned going with the more non-traditional builds to utilize them by the end of the season. But to be successful in this league, you really have to have that ready on day one. So I think we're going to definitely be better suited this season. And as far as picking who I like in this game, I'll be happy either way. I just hope for a fun, action-packed game. I obviously want us to win, but I'll deal with the eating the fish and chips if I have to.
Yeah, just as a quick note, Aaron Arrington and Colin Douglas helped me coaching in when it was the Santa Fe Gorillas and the Mexico City Aztecs. Then with Aaron Arrington, brilliant coaches. So I think that the Gladiators will be a different beast this season, definitely, and obviously pulling for Aaron Arrington to get his own team probably soon. Next season, probably he's going to be one of the candidates. So I think the Gladiators will be a different beast this season.
In the next matchup, we have the defending champs, the owners of the trophy and the crown and the gold. The Mexico City Aztecs are traveling to Sioux Falls to face the Sparrow. Ramos, you'll go last on this one. Dwayne, you see this matchup, you think
I'm thinking that how are people going to stop Ray Bentley? How are people stop Julian Tyree? Um, the what we have over there in Mexico City is very close to the team that they had last season, and they, there have been times where Mexico City starts out slow. I don't think it's going to happen this season. I mean, that conference is just loaded with Queen City and Atlanta and Tallahassee and London and Carolina are not going to be teams that you're going to want to sleep on at all. And then Sioux Falls has been a perennial contender. Having to move back and forth. They were in the East and then the West last season, and now they're in the new Central. So they're a team that a lot of people have pegged as a potential to win our division. I definitely believe they have a good opportunity to do so. Yeah, and you have very traditional builds here. I like the outside linebackers and the inside linebackers you have in Sioux Falls. I think you could possibly, against some teams, get away with no defensive line, but you got Ray Bentley over on the other side of the ball there. And then we all know that Matt Wilson, no matter what tier you put in, he can produce, and he's going to hit his targets, and he's got a lot of weapons over there. I like the way Ramos has spread things around, and uh, you know, Sioux Falls being at home could be the deciding factor. It could be whether or not Tyree is able to get a jump on the defense early. But I'm actually thinking that Mexico City will pull this one out. This is going to be a very good football game. And I think that, both of these teams, no matter what the outcome, they're going to be ready for week one. These are two contenders here. So this is one to watch, definitely. Get your popcorn ready.
These builds are very similar. The only thing is Mexico City invested in their workhorse, Ray Bentley. Sioux Falls invested in their quarterback, Julian Tyree. But for the most part, offensively, they both tote a quarterback, a running back, and three wide receivers. Defensively, they're almost the same, except that Mexico City invested in a kicker, and Sioux Falls is invested in a second outside linebacker. So those are the only differentiating parts. But besides that, they both have very similar builds. Um, Coming into this season, they both relied on their safeties to be their returners. So it'll be we'll have to see how that works out for them this season. How they go about handling their special teams units, at least the return units. Um, Coming into this game, Ray Bentley is not looking like, at least not at the gates, going to be the kind of back that he was last season, where he was a threat to, injure defensive players, because he'll either put his helmet in your chest, or step on your chest, or uppercut you through, do bad things to your chest. He's not looking like that same type of running back, at least not right now. So they might be a little more reliant upon Matt Wilson and the trio of receivers he has to throw to. I touched upon last week, I believe, as to Sioux Falls, what they believe was their downfall last season was their quarterback not being the upper echelon quarterback that he usually is. And this season, they made sure that they made that investment into his ability and his stats. So he'll be a better quarterback, making better decisions, to a trio of receivers as well. For this game, style playbooks, I like the better quarterback as opposed to the quarterback that's not as good quite yet, because there's no game planning involved. Going with Sioux Falls. Both teams, though, this season is going to be, got Sioux Falls in the Central. We know Sioux Falls can play defense with the best of them. It's going to be interesting how they go about developing that offense. What they expected out of Robert Redford. For Mexico City out in the East, facing all these different builds, teams with no corners, teams with 4 defensive linemen, teams with no defensive linemen. It'll be interesting to see how Mexico City goes about navigating the treacherous waters of the Eastern Conference. Ramos, what you think of this matchup you got coming up in Sioux Falls?
Well, basically as you said, Julian Tyree will be the one guy who we need to keep the eye on. Um, and I'm confident on our secondary and our staff secondary with King Wallace and Fran Ogawa, as well as our safeties in Cabrera and Zamora to stop the passing game. I think that we'll be fine on there. I think our corners match up well with the wide receivers. I think that our safeties do as well. Um, and the same goes with the run game. I do like Landon Mack and Jack Brown, our linebackers, against the running back Robert Redford. I think that we'll be prepared. On offense, it's going to be a war. We will try to keep it balanced. We will rely on Ray Bentley, but we will also throw the ball quite a few times to just keep it balanced and keep the opposing team guessing. As I said on the previous games, the kicker I think will be a factor as well. And in our case, we have Cole Varner, which is the highest tiered kicker in the league. So, I'm not going to predict a winner in this game, but I think that we have a good chance to pull this one out.
The Aztecs are going down. The Aztecs are going down. I'm sorry. I'm leaving the
and for them, it's also Julian Tyree. I mean, they also have three wide receivers. So do we. But it's the three linebackers that kind of, yeah, I'll be honest, it kind of worry me. So probably Ray Bentley is not gonna be that like beast 300 yards, but I think that will be enough, and he will do enough for us to get W.
We're going to touch on the next matchup of Old Face in a New Place. We have the Vancouver Legion, whose owner, Andy Hamilton, used to be a coordinator for the Carolina Skyhawks that they'll be facing in preseason. Ramos, you got Vancouver with Tom Pepper. You got Carolina with Mark Biddix. What you see there?
Well, the thing that jumps out for me is the defensive tackle of the Carolina Skyhawks, Christopher Colon. That he is one guy that you need to keep the eye on, because if the Vancouver Legion offensive line does not block that guy, it's going to be very difficult. And you also have two outside linebackers. As I said, I love this Carolina Skyhawks build. You have two linebackers, you have the full secondary. So I think it's going to be difficult to move the ball on them all season long. And in this game, the same thing. Mark Biddix and AJ Francis on the backfield, I think that is underrated. I think they will be very good tandem this season. But if I have to predict a winner, I will go with the Vancouver Legion, just because of what I saw last season. I love their offense, with four receivers, three of them wide receivers. You have Ivan Sanchez, who's a beast. I love the addition of Mahmoud Ashfani. I really do. Frank Champion is one of the most underrated players in the league, because he can cover sideline to sideline. He drops back in coverage. He intercepts the ball. He does everything. I remember last season, a game against our Aztecs where Frank Champion, I think he intercepted two passes. So Frank Champion is a guy who can do it all. I will go with Vancouver here, about 24-21.
Dwayne, what you think?
Well, I think this is a very interesting matchup here. You have a student versus their tutor kind of game, their mentor. You have a lot of weapons over there in Vancouver, and also a very good defense. A lot of explosive firepower over in Carolina. I think people are going to be watching Vancouver because I think their division is going to be much better this season, or their conference is going to be much better this season. They got off to a slow start, but they finished extremely strong. They went on one of the better runs we've ever seen in the SFL. We'll see if they can keep that momentum up. If they're going to tweak with the formula a little bit, or if they're going to, keep plugging along with what they know, and how well that's going to work. And Carolina, honestly, is one of those teams that they've been better than their record has said they were the entire time they've been in the SFL. This is a very good team that can turn around and surprise you and can score on you in a hurry. They don't have Johnny English anymore. Uh, and they don't have some of the coaches that they started out with, Andy and Shan especially. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this season with James Klein running everything from the coaching, what's going to happen. I think we're going to see a lot of running and then see how he can utilize the rest of his weapons. I think because of the traditional build and they're at home, I think this could be one of those games where you're going to see a potential for a shootout to break out or potential for the defenses to start picking off passes like they were flies. So that's going to make it a very interesting game to watch. I'm going with Carolina at home, and I just think they might be. This might be the year where they, start to make some noise again.
Vancouver comes into this game. Their offense kind of is throttled down quite a bit from what he had, what it was last season. Carolina, conversely, though their quarterback is not as good, I guess you could say, because he's a lower value quarterback. Their offense looks a little more balanced. They bring a little more, their quarterback's a little better, their running back's a little better, their receivers are about a hair worse, but it's not as big, as big a difference as what their quarterback and running back bring to the table. And their defense is very well balanced, and they also have the highest value defensive tackle in the league with Chris Colin. Um, that could be a problem for Vancouver and down, in the middle there if they're not, well, they're not game planning for him because we don't game plan. It's preseason, but he's going to be problematic whenever they get into those spread sets where when the quarterback is having to hold the ball just a bit longer because the receivers are running routes that take longer to develop down the field. Chris Colin could be a problem, and because of the attention he require, it'll free up the rest of the non-star defensive linemen to get one-on-ones or even one-on-nones to apply pressure on Tom Pepper. That's where I see the game being won for Carolina. AJ Francis being able to convert key third downs into first downs and keeping them on time. And that's where I could see them pulling this game out late, making it look worse than it was because the game started out close and in the fourth quarter, it kind of got away from Vancouver as the game wore around. That's where I could see this game going. Last but not least, we got the Chicago Wildcats wanting to come to Alaska to play in the snow. So we said, sure, why not? We'll have y'all over for a game. So the Wildcats are going to come up to Alaska to play the Storm this preseason. Ramos, what do you think of the matchup?
No team has bigger names than the Chicago Wildcats. I mean, when you look at this team, it's like you're looking at an all-pro team, like the all SFL team. You have, MVP E.T. King. You have Jay Calvin Kim, who, when it's all said and done, he might have the most touchdowns in SFL history. You have Kendall Gilbert, an absolute beast. You have Davius Reed, Alex Eli, the tight end Sham Varner. You have former Aztec Ajamu Afolabi. You have Clint Henderson, Tanya Rockefeller, former first overall pick, that is. You have Blake Hambrack, he's fantastic. AJ Barnes, we know how AJ Barnes plays, returns kicks. And then we have, last but not least, obviously, Maurice Spurgeon, who is one of the SFL, legends. That being said, I, again, love this build. However, I just think that the Alaska build right now, today, is a little bit too much to handle, even for this stack group. Because you have two wide receivers in Optimus Klein and Robert Merrill that are just insane good right now. You have Alex Dominguez, big sexy. He eats. You have Tony Willis. I love Tony Willis at a higher tier player. They also have the kicker. I love the kicker, Brad Burchett. So, I will go with Alaska in this ball game. But this is just two heavyweights that are going to go at it. I will go Alaska 27-24.
Dwayne, what do you think of this matchup?
I like this one a lot. This is probably, with a possible exception of, the Sioux Falls game with Mexico City. This is probably the premier matchup of the preseason games. You've got Chicago just one step away from the championship, and like Ramos said, this team, uh, they weren't an expansion team last season. They were an all-pro team, and they're getting another year of playing together under their belt, and they brought back most of the tools that they had, and then they brought in J. Calvin Kim as well. Scary how solid this team is from top to bottom. But then over in Alaska, you have uh, a lot of max contracts over there, and some big name players as well. Your wide receiver core. Uh, wide targets for Cochran, and then you've got Big Sexy over there, slimming down and getting faster every season over there on defensive end. Probably the easily the best defensive lineman in the league right now. And then Tony Willis, anchoring a very solid secondary. And then, kickers matter, and you know how to use them. And it's really interesting seeing going into the preseason here, no running back. That could be interesting to see how often that is going to slam into the front seven of Chicago during the game when we have a generic, or if we can compensate with more of an open up passing game. I know you're not going to have any problems whatsoever when you hit the regular season, but this is going with default playbooks. So you got Chicago coming in. They're a cold weather team, but they're a dome stadium team coming into the eye of the storm over there. I like this game a lot. It's hard for me to pick a winner of this one, but I'm gonna go Chicago just because I think they're a little bit better suited for the preseason game. Alaska definitely is going to be a team I'm going to keep my eye on over there. Maybe I can get my pom poms out this season for you guys, because I know you've been cheering for us, Mighty, um, over there on the West Coast. Maybe you can have a central team with the pom poms, Sispu Ba over there. But yeah, I got Chicago in this one, and then both teams. Man, these are two potential championship game teams here. So this is going to be a great matchup.
I can't pick a winner because I got I'm biased here. If I say Chicago, it's because you're trying to use that reverse psychology. If I pick Alaska, you're a homer. So, anyways, let me delve into the matchups a little bit. ET kind of throttled down from what we're accustomed to. MVP ET King put the ball in his hand with the game on the line. He's bound to bring it home. ET King. He's not that guy coming out of the gate. He's been brought down to a middle tier. The rest of that offense, the rest of that team really is lower level players, except for Lil Mo Spurgeon manning the deep middle of their defense. That two outside linebacker build is going to be interesting, as well as to see how they're going to go about deploying it during the regular season. But for the preseason, if whenever Alaska's in three or more receiver sets, only one, sometimes none, might be on the field, depending on if they're playing nickel or dime. So that's going to be interesting there. On Alaska's side of the ball, the lack of star running back is going to prove problematic in the preseason because the core, the for the most part, the running, the AI likes to run the ball. We don't have a star to run with, so unless they are, unless we get lucky there and they call the right kind of plays for the running back to kind of get one on nuns, for him to be successful, that's going to be some uphill climbing where Ron is going to be stuck in a lot of second and long and third and longs to have to save the O. Um, that might not be the best recipe for success. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. There, I'm not gonna pick a winner. We broke down, so we present you with all the matchups coming in for the preseason. Do not forget, preseason begins December 26th. That is the day after Christmas in Canada. We call it Boxing Day. So all the games are going to happen between the 26th and the 30th. Avail yourself to those. I'm pretty sure we'll have, as we get closer to those dates, we'll have exact times and places for everybody to make themselves available to those. That's one. Two, I was on the phone with our commander in chief, our Cam, and he told me some awesome information. And it's stuff that I can't share because if I were to share it, I have to kill every last one of y'all. And I love y'all too much. I have to get rid of y'all. So that being said, you don't want to miss Tuesday nights, 8 Central, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. Do not miss Tuesday. Not only we're going to touch about the playoffs and how we will go about picking who makes the playoffs, because that's big news in itself. You don't want to miss what follows up after that. I'll give y'all a hint. It's broadcasting news. It's very important. It's big news. It's news. It's news that got me excited. On top of that, we got other news about who wants to jump on the SFL bandwagon. That's great news. I'll give y'all a hint of that one. What makes NFL films great? I'm gonna leave that hanging in midair. Question mark. So Tuesday night, big time news happening. Don't miss it. 8 Central, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific on Twitch, not on YouTube. If you go to YouTube, you're gonna be sitting there by yourself because you ain't nobody else gonna be there with you. We're all gonna be on Twitch watching this happening live. Don't miss it. So we're putting a bow on this one because it's done. For Dwayne Schindler, you got anything for the people there, Dwayne?
Well, yeah, you got my interest peaked now for the announcements. Yeah, definitely I'm going to be there. But yeah, Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy New Year if I don't speak to you guys again. Um, go Gladiators, and we'll look forward to some SFL action coming up here. We'll get the preseason taken care of, and then I can't wait for the regular season. This is going to be an epic season. I can feel it.
Thanks for that, Dwayne. For Ramos, owner of the gold and the crown and the trophy, you got anything for the folk?
No, just enjoy the games. Thank you very much for joining us, whether if you're watching live or listening live or on demand. Thank you very much for spending 1 hour of your time with us, and go Aztecs.
I am Max Paul, Mighty Rex, your host of this SFL podcast. I cannot emphasize enough. Don't miss Tuesday. Big news is happening Tuesday. You don't want to miss what's going to go down. With that said, peace.